Can you believe it? The PLL is already 2 weeks deep and storylines are exploding across the league. The NCAA is officially down to the final 4 teams with Championship Weekend here. The Toronto Rock just captured another championship this past weekend, and meanwhile, Lacrosse Canada is back in the spotlight after new board meeting minutes dropped and more questions continue to surface around leadership, the finances, and transparency. So today we're diving into all of it. The PLL surprises, the NCAA Final Four storylines, the latest from Lacrosse Canada, and a quick salute to Toronto Rock before we save the full breakdown for episode 50. Let's get right into it. Welcome back. My name is Jake MacDonald. I'm Anything Lacrosse, and this is a game that never sits still. Starting off strong, as always, just go follow all the socials, the podcast everywhere, Spotify, YouTube, Talks, Instagram, all of it. Please go do it and join the Discord. Everything will be coming up on the screen here for you. And as always, leave me a comment on what you want to see in these episodes or what you like or dislike about these or what you disagree with. I love hearing it, and I always try to respond to the comments that I do get. Make sure you comment. This is episode 49 of the podcast. We got to catch up on some field lacrosse. We're right down to the nitty gritty in college, and we are just starting in the PLL, but there's been some exciting games. So I'm going to go over 2 weeks with you guys with the PLL, and I'm going to go over the last round of the NCAA championships, and we'll talk about what's going to happen this weekend as well. So get ready, get excited, strap in, because field lacrosse is a very exciting sport, and I've enjoyed watching some of it. I haven't got to watch as much as I would have liked to because it's kind of harder to find some of it, and the quality is not the greatest on some of it, but it's a start, and the PLL does a great job. I will say that. I have watched some PLL, and they do a great job. So today, on episode 49, we'll be talking new Lacrosse Canada meeting minutes. We're going to go through all of those in depth, and I've talked to somebody on the inside of there, so I've got some more in depth other than what's gone on in the minutes a little bit as well that we'll cover. I'd like to start off by saying congratulations to Toronto Rock. I did pick them as my team for the playoffs this year, and I said if they won, I'd be a Toronto Rock fan. So I'm a Toronto Rock fan now, guys. I'll be getting the tattoo and all this thing. I've got my leaf right here for anybody on video. And I'll be getting my. I think I'm gonna go here, but you guys let me know what you think. We'll be talking about Lacrosse Canada. I'll be going over all the minutes in detail, and then I will be going through, and then I'll kind of give you a little insight that I got from one of the contacts I have close to the situation. And then I will also, so a little bonus to anybody listening here. I've got some stuff that maybe might not be completely explained in the minutes. I had to have it clarified, so we'll go through that. I would also we're going to go through the last 2 weeks of PLL, like I said, and we're going to go through the championship weekend preview, and I'll tell you what happened last weekend in the NCAA, because there was a lot of good games there as well, and a lot of tight games, and as always, a couple of little upsets there too. So last time I talked about Lacrosse Canada, we pretty much got up to the end of March. We're going to be talking about April 14th minutes, April 21st, 2026 special meeting of the members that was called, and then you've April 26th, 2026 as well. I'm going to go through each one of them with you so you guys understand. Like I said, this is a sticky situation, and there still seems to be to me, there still seems to be somewhat of a power struggle here. Some of them, I'm going to go through this like line by line and everything, but it seems like to me like some of them wanted to some member or some people on the board seemed like they wanted to elect the executive director right away. Other people want to wait. A lot of them are saying leadership is super important. They're also putting into implementing something so this doesn't happen again. So when I look at things, I want to hear your guys' opinion, especially after you listen to this, about do you think Lacrosse Canada is in good hands at this point? I personally think we're moving in the right direction, but it's still a little bit more bickering, like not bickering, but it's more, I find there's still people that aren't on the same page, which kind of worries me a little bit, because I think at this point you should have been able to clean house enough to where you're bringing in people that have kind of somewhat a similar mindset, because at the end of the day, nothing's going to happen if we don't have a goal, which they talk about all this stuff. So that's what I mean. I do think there's positives here. So let's go through it. We're going to start with April 14th, the meeting of April 14th. Okay, so starting off strong, we had in attendance was Matt Shearer, which was the president and the chair. You had Barbara Lockhart, which is director at large. All these people are director at large. Barbara Lockhart, Stephanie LeBlanc, Stephen Pagan, and Ted Goldthorpe. And then you had Hannah Lazar as the Indigenous director and Zach Currier as the athletic director. You also had Eva Havens as the executive advisor, and you had Gary Van Beek as the member council representative. So he's kind of always there, right, to represent the members, so they don't have to be at every meeting because that's a lot. So as always, they just do their acknowledgements to the creator and all that stuff. That was Matt that did that. And the agenda got approved, motioned it, and seconded. Also, again, they're just doing all of their normal stuff, approving the previous minutes. So here's something that the first thing that I liked about this. So you got operational financial updates, strategic roadmap. And this is, by the way, this is all, if you guys want to go read this, go to lacrossecanada.ca. You go to operations government when you click the drop down menu, and then you go over to admin, and then it's in admin. The financials and the minutes are in admin. or in Min. So anyway, with that being said, just so you guys can go reference it if you do want to go. Miss Eva Havens presented the revised 2026-2028 strategic roadmap, which now includes refreshed pillars for technical modernization, Olympic excellence, and diversified revenue. So that's all sounds pretty good. Like that sounds all things that we need to do. I'm a big technical, I'm a big trying to get all these sports up with technology, like use technology that's there, right? Let's not be archaic. Obviously, Olympic excellence is going to be something that is going to be talked about probably every meeting, I would assume, up until the Olympics, because it's a very, very important we put on a proper showing so we can keep this sport in the Olympics. And then trying to get more revenue, diversifying it is important. So that's all important. So good. I like that starting off, right? So KPIs, the board emphasizes the need for specific, measurable, and time-bound metrics to track progress over the next 6 months. Eva to engage us with the staff to align and establish these metrics in a formal operational plan. So actually, this is something that I had mentioned when I was talking to the people in Lacrosse Canada, like a couple weeks ago. I had mentioned this. There needs to be measurable goals. And this is shout out Mr. Pierre Filion. He's been on my show. I've listened to him. I read his stuff. I think Lacrosse, go check it out. Just kind of like me. We go through the information, we put our own opinion out there, right? So I try to kind of read you guys what it is, straight line for line, and then I'm going to give you my opinion on it, just to break up the monotony of me sitting here reading everything word by word. But this is something that he addressed, and I was like, you know what? You are bang on. So when I talk to Lacrosse Canada, I talk to my contacts in Lacrosse Canada, or close to them, I mention this, and now this is being addressed. So I'm not saying I was the one that did this, because I think this is a common sense thing, but I'm glad it's being addressed. Let's just put it that way. I don't care if it was me, Pierre, or just them figuring it out. Okay. So that's good news, right? We need to have, we want X amount of members. Let's say we want 5,000 new members across the country, right? In the next year. Like that, you need tangible goals so you can know. Now we hit 6,000. We did a great year. We did more than what we thought. Or, oh man, we only hit 2,000. Like, man, what can we do? But there needs to be some sort of goal so we can work to it, and then there could be a failure or a success point. Obviously, they need to be attainable goals, but I want to see some goals, right? So the athletic fees discussion regarding potential fallout, which was bracketed or quotation, so for fallout or decreased participation if national team athletes' fees are implemented. So to be honest with you, I don't mind that, like Lacrosse Canada and my membership fees personally going towards paying for these players, females and males, to go represent our country. I don't have an issue with that. Personally, we can't be drowning in debt, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that's something we should really look at cutting. I think that's something that we need to figure out how to keep in there. That's just, again, this is just my thoughts. You guys let me know what you think, because the thing is I want the best players there, and sometimes the best players just don't have the financial means to get there. So let's keep this affordable, or let's keep this let's just get the best team that we can for lacrosse to go there to represent Canada, because it is, as much as it's a creator game, it's the creator game, it's the native game, it's also Canada's game as well. It's Canada's national sport, so we need to represent and we need to win this tournament. Okay, we lost hockey, lacrosse, it's all in your shoulders. No pressure though, right? And then you've got member relations. The board identifies the need to reboot in harmony and service with member provinces. Action item: staff to finalize 2026-2027 operational plan and specific KPIs by the end of April. So we should be, on the next time I get minutes here, we should have some more answers for that. No additional changes or revisions requested. Action item: formal communication plan to align with communication team to push public messages of strategic plan updates. So that's just like jargon for they need to get better with the public, which I think is honestly probably, again, something to do with me a little bit, not to be like, have a big head, but I know that when I talk to the contacts in there or close to them, I know that they were not, they were kind of, because I think Lacrosse Canada works off email, and like they need to realize that social media is new everything. That the fastest, you need to be on top of your social media, right? When people are tagging you or people are putting stuff out on social, you should be aware of it. And if you don't have anybody in there to do that, you should hire somebody like that. This needs to be a position. And if they're not doing the proper job, then you need to have somebody in there, because there needs to be somebody on social media, because I guarantee you there's more chatter about this on social media than there is in anybody's emails. Right. And I think if you reach out to them email wise, they will respond, no problem. Don't get me wrong. But even for me as a content creator, I just usually read the stuff and put it out online. So I'm not reaching out to them. Now it's different now. I've got some connections in there or close to them. I have a little bit of an in, but to an average person that's talking about this or in the comment sections on some of their stuff, they should be on top of that stuff. Right. So if you need to hire somebody for that, you got to hire it. You got to figure it out. That's one thing. And I don't know, to be honest, I'm not sure if they do have that, but I know that was one of the things that I got brought up, was that I didn't reach out to them by email, to anybody by email, which I didn't, right? Which I should have, because, I'm technically somewhat a journalist. I do that in quotations because I still look at myself more of like just a social media guy that loves the sport that's just trying to get it out there. I have no journalism training, no media training, learning this, right? But I've learned some lessons along the way, especially with this, and just make sure I want to put out correct information. That's the number one thing for me. So another thing, transparency. The board discussed opening the books further to provide members with deeper insights into fee allocation and national team spend. So I like this too, because when I'm reading through the financials now, again, I'm not financially trained, right? I'm not like I can read a financial statement and usually somewhat know, get a good gist of it, but I have no financial education, right? I always say that at the beginning as a disclaimer, because I don't want people, if I screw something up or I misunderstand something, I want everybody. I'm not financially trained, but I do have common sense. So when I'm reading through this, some of the stuff that's lumped together, I don't like. So I would like to have a little bit more breakdown on how the finances are actually being spent, so we can hold Lacrosse Canada accountable with the money that we are paying to them and where they're getting the money from, Canada Sports and all this stuff. Whether they keep getting that, I hope they do. But with that being said, anyway, so Stephanie LeBlanc and Gary Van Beek relayed requests from the member council meeting held on April 3rd. SMOM observers. Members requested the ability to bring one silent observer per province to the special meeting members. The board shared they would consider the request and have further disclosed prior to the April 21st meeting. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. Membership fees. There is a significant member pressure to move toward a single participation fee. Action item. Eva Havens to lead a working group, including a cross-section of large and small member associations, to finalize the single participation fee model. I like that. I think everyone should just pay one set fee personally, but we'll see how that all goes. That's kind of jargon to me. That's a little bit jargony. What is that? At the end of the day, I'm reading that over and what does that really mean? Committee reports and nomination committee. Barbara Lockhart provided updates on senior leadership and searches and board vacancies. The ED search, so the executive director search. Nearly 100 applicants have been received to date, with multiple high potential candidates identified for screening. How many actually qualified? Are they nearly 100 qualified applicants? Because I just can't believe that, right? You might get that many resumes, whatever, people interested. They might have reached out to people and said, hey, are you interested? And then that's it, right? So with that being said, I just want them to bring in the best candidate. I don't care who it is, just bring in the best. And obviously they're not going to be 100 would be way too many to interview. So they're going to break it down, right? So I think that's a little bit, this is a thing where I think this is them trying to say this to try to make it sound better than it is. We need an executive director, okay? That's at the end of the day. I don't care if there's 10 candidates. I don't care if there's 100 candidates. Just get the best candidate in there and get it done, right? You can't tell me 100 candidates are being actually considered. So that's, again, I think that's a little bit trying to make this situation sound like we got so many good candidates applying, when it's just get somebody good in there. Hiring committee. Eva Haveris and the Lacrosse Canada president will sit on the final hiring committee. Now, right now, the acting president is Barbara Lockhart. That could change before they hire an ED. So that's why I think it's worded like this. So I don't think it's saying Barbara, because she might not still be president when they decide. She might also still be president. So it could be those two. So you guys let me know what you think about that, right? What are your thoughts on that? Because that I've said before, the other side of this is they don't think that she's the right person. Other people do say that she's the right person. I'm open to giving everybody a chance. I've just started, looking at this situation. So I'm going to be holding everybody accountable. I don't care who it is. So, but I am going to start with somewhat of a clean slate. I don't want to really go back and rehash everything that already happened. At the end of the day, this is the board that is people are sitting on right now. So let's work with what we got. Governance and Ethics Committee. So Stephanie Pagan provided updates on organizational safety and volunteer engagement. Safe Sport, an external audit of current documents confirmed Lacrosse Canada has strong policy suite, but lacks operational weak awareness and education regarding the process for how complaints are received and acted upon. So this is something that's basically, the complaints or whatever happened, they're trying to put systems in. So what just happened with that deficit doesn't happen again. You have a whistleblower policy. Plans are underway to revise the policy to ensure the use of an independent third party for complaints, which I think is important, because at the end of the day, if somebody at the top isn't doing their job, you can't go any higher than the president, right? Realistically, or you could go to the board or whatever, but it gets messy. So I think having a third party that can come in and be like, this is not happening, or this isn't working right, is important, that you can go to as a whistleblower if you're a board member or somebody in the organization, a staff member, a board member, a president, whatever, and you don't think somebody's doing, well, not so much president, but if you don't think somebody's doing something right, there's somewhere you can turn, and where that's not going to be corrupted. Because at the end of the day, we cannot have corruption in Lacrosse Canada. Okay. I'm not saying there was corruption. I just want to throw that out there, but we can't have it, right? Then you got steering groups. 14 individuals from 4 member associations have volunteered for the 12 steering groups. Men's field remains the only group without a volunteer. A reminder email will be sent to the member association to solicit further volunteers for steering group leads. And then you got the Indigenous Director Report. You have Hannah Lazar presented a $50,000 CLF funding proposal for Indigenous athletes' participation, coaching, and official development. So this thing, for me, I just want the best people in there, but I also understand that you need Indigenous representation in this game because it is a Native game. And at the end of the day, I'm fine with this as well because I do think it's important to have Indigenous in the game, their game. And first off, to be honest with you, they're the best at the game anyway. So the board discussed the suspension of an Indigenous minor athlete due to outstanding fees and the need for more equitable recourse. Hannah Lazar and Stephen to review the funding proposal to determine the balance of internal lacrosse funding versus external foundation support. Now, this is the thing. This is why it is important to put money into the program like this or into certain areas, because sometimes people just unfortunately don't have the means to play, or they, so if there's funding for it, you can get the top players in there. So I'm not against this, right? Especially for a lot of these kids that, like, if you've never, see, this is the thing. I've been to the res. Like, I don't think, like, if you're a fan and you've never been to the res, you don't understand what I'm talking about. But you'll be driving and there's like a rundown trailer on one property with like boarded up windows and shit. And then you drive down 2 minutes down the road and there's a mansion. So like, it's very different there. And there's some people who have a ton of money out there, and there's some people that are just struggling with addiction and all this stuff out there. So it's important to give those kids that were kind of dealt a shitty hand, let's just say it like that, opportunity. And that's what this funding does create, right? Other business. So board only. So a special meeting of members, a protocol. The board debated the balance between strict governance and member relations regarding observers, and B, board appointments to ensure stability and fulfill government duties. The board moved to fill 3 current vacancies. So who they put in was Caroline Meisher, Alan Iserman, and Trish Chancel. I think that's how I say their name. I apologize. Alan and Trish are both, their term is ending in September 2026. I'm sure they'll probably get it back in there since they're only going to be in there for a few months, but who knows? And then Caroline is her term ending in September 2028. So she's going to be there for at least a few years, right? So again, I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad, right? I don't know. And then that was pretty much the end of that meeting. So they pretty much ended on that. So that brings us to a week later, where we had a special members meeting, and this was called by the members, right? So we had, in attendance, we had Matt Shearer as the president, Barbara Lockhart. So directors at large were Barbara Lockhart, Stephen LeBlanc, Stephanie Pagan, Carolina Meisher, Trish Chancel, Alan Iserman, Hannah Lazar, and Zach Hurier. And the member association delegates were Gary Van Beek from British Columbia, Sean Angus from Alberta, Mandy Curie from Saskatchewan, Dusty Fromm from Manitoba, Jeremy Bailey from Ontario, Ghislaine Roy from Quebec, Charlotte Henderson from Nova Scotia, Chris Burgess from New Brunswick. Shout out. He's going to be on the podcast at some point. You got Jason Pregel for the First Nations, and you got Abby MacDonald for PEI. So you got, as well, they're always open with basically, so they just opening statements. I don't really want to have to go through those. Actually, yes, I do. So Jason Robinson welcomed attendees and provided opening introduction in his role in supporting procedural fairness and neutrality to the proceedings. Jason called the meeting to order at 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Rules of the meeting were outlined: use of the Roberts Rules of Order, confirmation of voting delegates and directors of voting accordingly to ordinary resolution, carried by majority of votes cast. Absences do not count as votes cast. So if you're not there, your vote doesn't count, essentially, is what it's saying. Jason indicated that a single resolution was currently the topic of the meeting that included the removal of both Matt Shearer and Barbara Lockhart, the Lacrosse Canada director members, who were then asked if they wanted to proceed with a single resolution or to split the removal of each director into 2 separate resolutions. So they chose to split it into a vote for Matt Shearer to stay on and for the removal of Barbara Lockhart, which there was no objections to, and they were unanimous to make that decision. So here's a confirmation of the voting list. So you got Jason Robertson as the chair, confirmed that all voting delegates who indicated their participation were in attendance, and quorum archived. All voting delegates confirmed the receipt of April 18th package with written statements and letters of support for Matt Shearer and Barbara Lockhart. So they obviously just weren't going this blind. They had some stuff. They got some letters and all that stuff, and they made an informed decision. So Gary Van Beek with BC has 21 votes. Sean Angus with Alberta had 15. Mandy Curry with Saskatchewan had 10. Dusty Forum with Manitoba had 9. Jeremy Bailey had 24 from Ontario. Ghislaine Roy had 5 from Quebec. Charlotte Henderson had 12 with Nova Scotia. Chris Burgess had 7 with New Brunswick. And Jason Pregley FNLA with 2 votes, and Abby MacDonald PI had 2 votes as well. Oh, and I think it just goes by association. So I think it's like you get a vote per association or something like that. I could be wrong on that one. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's kind of how it goes. As you can see, you have Ontario and BC leading the charge. They really run the show. Alberta with 15, Nova Scotia with 12. Actually, Nova Scotia's got a lot. The East Coast, to be honest with you, if the East Coast do, band together, they do. Like if you really, these minor associations should really try to be banding together, like Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PI should all be trying to band together, because at that they'd actually have a pretty strong seat at the table. But if they don't band together, it gets a little murky, right? Because you got, and even then, I don't even know if that would be enough. Because really, let's see, you got 45 votes between BC and in Ontario, Saskatchewan to 25, 34. Yeah, so if you everyone else band together, but Alberta is almost a swing vote, because if they're big, they're a decent chunk too, right? So I think if Alberta, Ontario, and BC are all on the same page, it doesn't really matter what the other members say, and to an extent. So in general, now before I get it, I'm going to read all this in a second, but I was told by the source that's close to Lacrosse Canada that the members, we don't exactly know how they voted per se, because they left the meeting for like 10 minutes or whatever, and they had discussed, and then they came back in and they made their decision at that, or they announced their decision at that point. So they would have went off, they would have had their own little meeting, and they would have voted. So we don't exactly know what the votes are, but I'm gonna go through all this and then we'll talk about it, okay? So general statement of rationales: removal of Matt Shearer. Jason Robertson, chair, indicated the members had not provided formal rationale for putting forward the resolution to remove Matt Shearer and Barbara Lockhart. Members were asked if they would like to provide verbal rationale for the motion. So Jeremy Bailey, Ontario, shared that there are 11 member associations, and there is frustration that their voices are sometimes heard but not heeded. In May 2025, there was a transfer of power, i.e. the shift to governance model, and there have been some changes that were overdue, but also some conducted without consultation. There is a frustration in the feeling that only recourse is to call a special meeting and to go through the process. So obviously what happened back in May, the members weren't fully on board with, right? Some of it, they sounded like, oh yeah, it's great, it needed to be done. But other things, I think they feel like the board might have overstepped their power. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at that. Again, that's just my interpretation. You guys I'm reading a line for line. You guys interpret it any way you want, right? But I'm just giving you my interpretation. I think that's what I gather off that and everything I've been told. Charlotte Henderson from Nova Scotia shared 3 main concerns: Lacrosse Canada not adhering to the bylaws with respect to determining participation fees. So a lot of people were pissed off that their participation fees went up, especially in the East Coast. I know that was a big topic. A branch in Lacrosse Canada's duty of care to properly communicate the fee increase. So yeah, that was just like, basically, honestly, let's just call a spade a spade. The fee increase was because they fucked up and they didn't have enough money to cover what they were spending. That's just the truth of it. And that's just, again, this is my take on it, not actually my opinion. This is my opinion on the whole situation, okay? I think that's why fees were raised. You can say whatever you want. We need it for this. At the end of the day, you guys fucked up. $150,000 in meetings, bullshit. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But we're moving on from that. We're moving on, and we're going to start a new leaf. So, but I do agree with the members. That's just the way it is. So they didn't tell you really why their members were, or why the fees were increasing, or at least the members didn't feel that they had explained why before they just had made the decision. And a failure to exercise appropriate oversight in the length of time taken to address and rectify staff failures. So again, this is a big issue. This was kind of all somewhat swept under the rug again for too long. And that's what the members are saying. And that's what the members are supposed to do. They need to hold the board accountable. They're doing their job by calling the special member meeting, in my opinion. So hats off to the members that had the balls to do this. A director's statement. Matt Shearer. The director chair was provided with 5 minutes to speak with members. Matt Shearer acknowledged the members' right to bring the resolution and took responsibility for the frustration resulting in the communication failures. Work to improve Lacrosse Canada was presented, including official responsibility, stability, structure, accountability, and the need for operational continuity. Recognition that there has been a lot of change and that the new governance model will take time. That process is happening. Shared his desire to continue leading the work and forward progress to help Lacrosse Canada improve. His belief in the work and partnership with member associations. So, consideration of the resolution, removal of Matt Shearer. Attendees were invited to respond and discuss the resolution. Members, that must have been when they left for the 10 minutes or whatever. Members, delegates shared frustration in the process of needing a special meeting and resolution to have their voices heard, indicated they had significant discussion about the potential impact of 3 decisions. Director at large shared and highlighted the work that has been accomplished towards improving member value and relationships, the difficulties of the board of directors has been faced with over the last 6 months, and the importance of continuality and balance support for Matt as a director. So again, a little bit of a word salad there, to be honest with you. So voting. Resolution to remove Matt Shearer as director of Lacrosse Canada by a show of hands. All 10 attending voting delegates voted in favor of removing Matt Shearer as director chair. Jason Robinson, chair, dismissed Matt as Lacrosse Canada director and invited him to leave the meeting. So Matt Shearer was basically gone. He, again, when you're the head honcho, you got to kind of, in order to, a lot of times it's just like cutting off the head of the snake, or that's that's what it feels like to me, is what the members are trying to do here. They're trying to cut off the head of the snake. You know, sometimes the head of the snake is just the bystander. I don't know. I don't know enough about Matt Shearer to say, oh, is he at fault? Was he not? From everything I've read, he's jumped back and forth between the two sides a little bit. So that's just my take on it. Again, that's my opinion. Okay. But this is, from what I heard from my source close to Lacrosse Canada, they basically just, when I said it's all 10 attending voting, and when we go through Barbara's, you'll hear the wording's a little bit different, but basically they didn't know the source that I have. They basically told me they had left for 10 minutes. They didn't actually hear them, but obviously this is pretty clear cut, right? So yes, okay. So general statement rationales, removal of Barbara Lockhart was the next one. And attending delegates were invited to provide verbal rationales for the resolution. No member statements were provided, so they really didn't have anything to say. Barbara Lockhart, the director, was provided 5 minutes, just like Matt was, to speak with members. Barbara Lockhart expressed the efforts in trying to listen to members and was pained to hear the members don't feel heard. She acknowledged missteps taken by Lacrosse Canada in the push towards the improvement as the governance model settles. She expressed wanting to continue the good work she had been involved with and indicated if members remain unhappy with her work, then she would resign September 2026 AGM. She further indicated that continually is crucial. 2020. So this is the thing. I don't know if anybody remembers a couple weeks ago. I think it was Frick. Maybe Frick put out that she was going to step down in September 2026. That is only if the members were unhappy with her. Right. So this is what is basically being said and I think this is what the rumor got misstrued as a little bit. As far as I know, she wants to stay on for the next couple of years, just to kind of help steer the ship here. So, but if the members wanted her gone, they have the opportunity to vote her out here, right? So the removal of Barbara Lockhart, attendees were invited to respond to and address the resolution. Several members, delegates shared the opposition to remove. So consideration of the resolution, removal of Barbara Lockhart. The attendees were invited to respond and address the resolution. Several members, delegates shared their opposition to removing Barbara, indicating it would not be productive to remove additional directors, that her position is not to be held to account the same way the president chair position is, that her experience and skill set is critical to the continuality with hiring, etc. Several directors also expressed support for Barbara and recognized her work ethic and passion on the board. Jeremy Bailey, Ontario, requested a recess for members delegates to conference privately. Jason Robertson provided a 10-minute recess when members delegates and returned. There was no further consideration or discussion regarding the resolution. So this is where I want to reading this. It sounds like they voted Matt out like right there in the meeting and then took 10 minutes to do Barbara. What I was told was they actually left and you didn't hear either vote. So maybe, I don't know, again, I'm going and maybe I misunderstood that, whatever, but this is kind of what I've been told, okay? So basically, they just left and came back and voted them both out. I don't know. The resolution to remove Barbara Lockhart as director with Lacrosse Canada by a show of hands, all 10 attending delegates voted to reject the resolution to Barbara Lockhart as a Lacrosse Canada director. Resolution was defeated. So it's interesting that they brought her into this if they just were going to vote it down, but maybe they needed to hear her talk. Maybe they wanted to, maybe what she said in that 5 minutes really showed like compassion and showed, humility, and that she was willing to work towards the goals that the members seen fit. And obviously she has a strong skill set that the members see beneficial to helping Lacrosse Canada grow. So again, I'm giving everybody the benefit of the doubt right now. And I'm giving everybody, at the end of the day, these are our board members. This is what the members have chosen. This is what the directors have gotten in there. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna give everybody a clean slate. So Barbara, I hope you do the best job you can. And I know I've been critical on her, and I've also, the other side that I was talking about before was also very critical on her. But at the end of the day, this is where we're sitting, and I'm going to give her a fair, honest shot. And that's, and I'll keep not just her, but everybody. I'm going to keep accountable towards this. So next steps, Jason Robinson, the chair, provided a summary of current status resulting from a vote. There's currently vacancy of Lacrosse Canada board members. We're instructed to conduct with Matt Shearer to collect material for transition, council to update website information accordingly, and determined who the next Lacrosse Canada president chair will be moving forward. Jason also recommended that members wait to fill the position of the 2026 AGM as in accordance with Lacrosse Canada bylaw. So basically, like, the members kind of want to wait to hire the ED, I guess, or the president, I guess, is what I got to September. So this is going to be a lot's going to go on at the general meeting in September there. In accordance with the Canada Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, the NFP Act, members delegates indicated wanting to nominate a candidate within the same meeting to fill the vacancy of Matt Shearer. Matt Shearer's removal, which I think is a good idea. Try to get somebody in there. Gary Van Beek nominated Rob Masuka to the board of director at large. Jason Robinson, chair, asked other delegates by vote if anyone opposed appointing a new director at this time. 2 delegates were opposed. So for BC, Manitoba, PEI, Nova Scotia, Ontario, and Quebec were 4. And then opposed were New Brunswick and Saskatchewan. So Chris Burgess was against this. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to talk to him about this. And then abstained was the FNLA, which was Alberta. And then it carried. So, and then Jason Robinson called for any additional nominations. None brought forward. Jason Robinson called to vote appointing Rob Mazuka to the board until the 2027 AGM. Motion to vote moved by Gary Van Beek and seconded by Sean Agus. Alberta carried with no opposition. Jason Robinson, chair, confirmed Rob Mazuka's appointment and encouraged senior members of the board to contact him, notify of his election. It was about a 2-hour meeting, a little over 2 hours for this. They were in there. So pretty decent. So that was the April 1st meeting. And now we're going to get into the April 26th meeting. This is the last minutes that they put out. They had in attendance for this one was Barbara Lockhart, Stefan LeBlanc, Stephanie Pagan, Caroline Mischer, Trish Chancel, Alan Iserman, Ted Goldthorpe, Rob Masuka, Hannah Lazar was the Indigenous director, and Zach Currier is the athletic director. You don't see much of him, though. He must just sit there and enjoy the show, man, because I'm telling you, I would pay to be a fucking fly on the wall during these meetings. My God, this would be hilarious. But if I was on, like, if I would be in there, I couldn't report it. So I don't want to really be on the board or anything. I just love to be a fly on the wall and be able to sit in these meetings and actually take my notes myself. You've got staff advisors, Eva Havaras, executive director, and then Gary Van Beek, as always, is there as well. So as always, they do the opening acknowledgement, and then they just approve the agenda. I'm not going to go through this again. I already did that the first one. So leadership discussion. Directors indicated a need for a stack succession model moving forward. Directors expressed a need for interim leadership immediately and to have the governance and ethics committee develop a proposal for stacked leader success planning processes for consideration at a later date. Barbara Lockhart expressed guarded interest in filling the interim president chair role. Stephanie Pagan motioned for Barbara to be interim president chair until the September 2026 AGM, seconded by Stefan LeBlanc. So obviously we need somebody in there, and this is just going to be till September. Then she might stay on president. She might end up becoming the full-time president. She also might end up being somebody else. So we'll see what happens there. I'm not really sure. So other nominations from the floor were requested. Rob Mazuka motioned to nominate Ted Goldthorpe. The motion was not seconded. So I know that that's kind of who I know some people who really were hoping that he got in, and he wasn't. So I'm not saying he won't be, because he might end up getting in there come September, right? So we'll see what happens there. So Barbara Lockhart acclaimed to interim president chair for Lacrosse Canada Board of Directors, and the executive director hiring update. Barbara Lockhart provided a brief update to the hiring process. The executive director position, including more than 150 submissions received to date. The hiring committee is being finalized. I don't care how many applications there are. I don't care how many submissions there are. That is all bullshit, because I could apply for the executive director position, right? And I'm not qualified for that. So I want to, 150. Come on, just give me the top, break it down. And obviously they're going to be doing that they're getting a hiring committee finalized. But you can't tell me you're considering 150 people. There's no way. You might get 150 applications. I think that's more to make it look good, to make it sound good, all that stuff. I think that's just like fluff. I don't care. I just want the best candidate in there, okay? Don't give a shit how many candidates you go through. Don't give a shit how many applications you get. I don't care as long as we get the best possible person in there, okay? Again, don't care if it's a woman, don't care if it's a man. Don't really give a fuck as long as they're going to do the good job, because they have a hill to climb, whoever gets in there. Whoever becomes the executive director, yeah. I'm going to try to get I'll try to get them on here. I'm going to try to get somebody from Lacrosse Canada on the podcast eventually, and we'll talk about it. Like I said, I'm moving forward with this. I'm giving everybody here a clean slate because I came into this late. I'm giving everybody a clean slate. I will keep everybody accountable as much as I can. I would love to have anybody on the podcast, and I will definitely be reaching out to Lacrosse Canada and my contact that's close to them and try to get somebody on here. So Governance and Ethics Committee update. Stephanie Pagan provided key initiatives needing attention. So semi-annual meeting and need for an additional steering groups for LA 2028 and revenue generating committee. There is an urgent need to determine how and when the semi-annual meeting will take place. Board is looking for member input to help determine their needs. Formal governance training is expected to take place at the meeting for the board of director and members to co-learn. So that's good. They're going to get together. I think that's good. You know, all that stuff. Agreements for creating the LA, hopefully somewhere central, or if it's not online, somewhere central. Okay. I don't care. Meetings don't mean anything. Tournaments are different. The game is different. Having a meeting down in New Brunswick, because that's what fucking happened last time, it's not beneficial to the growth of the game. It's not. Having it in Ontario, having it in BC every time, I don't care. Wherever centrally and wherever's going to be the cheapest to do it is where I want to see it be done. I don't care. You can't convince, you'll never convince me that it is beneficial to have a meeting in New Brunswick. Okay, I'm in New Brunswick and I'm saying that. In the East Coast, in Nova Scotia, in wherever. Wherever is cheapest to have the meeting is where you should have it. If you want to have in person and everybody, if you have a bunch, I think it's Ontario. It makes the most sense, right? I think that's where a lot of these people are from. To fly everybody in where you could just drive them, they stay at the hotel or maybe even their own fucking house to save some more money, okay? Because if they're close enough to drive, just fucking drive there, okay? So if there's like a bunch, I don't know where all these members live. I don't know, okay? But I can tell you, wherever the most centrally located spot is, that's where these meetings should be. Okay, if they're going to do them in person. I don't care if it's the same place every fucking year. If that's where if that's where it makes the most sense financially to keep the financial pressure down off this, that's where we need to have it. Okay, I don't care if we're up a bunch of money either. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to grow the game. It's not. I don't care. You're not going to convince me that a meeting is going to grow the game. Okay. I know that's a little bit ranty, but I've been told that by a contact close to Lacrosse Canada. It drives me nuts because that is such a cop-out, whatever you want to call it. I understand that appearances, we're trying to grow the game apparently. I don't care about appearances. I want to act results. Okay. And having a meeting in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia or BC or Alberta or fucking the middle of fucking Timbuktu is going to change going to grow the game. I don't care, okay? It's more about what happens in the meeting and how they move forward and act on it. That actually matters, okay? Sorry. I know that was a little bit of a rant, but I need to get that off my chest. So, Revenue Generating Committee, there's an urgent need to determine how and when the semi-annual meeting will take place online. Let's just sim it up. I don't think you need an in-person meeting twice a year. It's just the cost of it is too much. That's what it comes down to me. But I digress. We'll be critical on that. I'm really critical on those, especially when you're drowning in debt, okay? Once we are out of debt, you want to have your fucking meetings in person twice a year. It is what it is, okay? But once a year, I think the AGM in person, I think is important. Other than that, I don't think it's worth doing them in person. My own opinion there. So the board is looking for a member input to help determine their needs. Formal governance training is expected to place. Yeah, okay, so I already read that. Sorry. So the agreement for creating the LA 2028 advisory group immediately is important. An important distinction was made that these committees are not operational in nature. More work to understand the perimeters of the revenue generating group is needed. So just blah, 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 blah. Doesn't really fucking matter. No, it's just basically saying like, they got to get a LA 2028 advisory group immediately. Nomination committee update. Barbara Lockhart shared core committees suggested appointments. So this is basically who's going to be, because suggested is in brackets here. So this is basically going to be it. I'm sure they're subject to change, but I think this is going to be what you're going to get. So you got Finance and Audits Committee of Ted Goldthorpe and Rob Mazuka. You got Governance and Ethics Committee of Stephanie Pagan, Lazar, Alan Iserman. Then you got Nominations Committee of Barbara Lockhart, Stephanie LeBlanc, Caroline Meisher. And you got the LA 2028 Advisory Committee of Trish Seal. So I'm assuming there's going to be more put on there. I'm hoping it's not just one person, all that to put on there. And then all directors were asked if there are any objections. There were none. So those are going to be, that's going to be it, right? I don't really love that there's only one person on the LA 2028 advisory committee. I don't really like that, to be honest with you. I think there should be more, but hey, I digress. What the fuck do I know? Remember guys, I'm just reading this and I'm like a normal person. So I'm just reading it. If I'm wrong and you guys can explain, oh, hey, there's one person and they're going to have staff under them, or they're going to be, they're going to be using the staff of Lacrosse Canada. Okay, cool. I don't really know that fully. So just full disclosure, right? I'm trying to be fully transparent with you guys on my knowledge and how I'm reading this and understanding this, right? So if there's corrections being made, correct me. And I'm going to have somebody eventually on Lacrosse Canada come in and talk to me on my podcast about this because I think it's important. So Gary Van Beek shared the member council will be moving their date of meeting to 1 week prior to Lacrosse Canada Board of Directors meetings. This structure is seen to be a more efficient process of bringing information to the board of directors. That makes the most. Why wasn't this like this before? That's common sense. You have a meeting with the members before the big meeting with all the board of directors. This doesn't, and Gary Van Beek's in every meeting. This doesn't make any sense to me why this wasn't done before. But like I said, we're moving forward, fresh leaf, and we're gonna get on the right track now. So the board of director exited from NCAA. So that's basically 8:22. This meeting was a little over an hour, so a little bit shorter, but a lot less covered. And there we go. Now I'm not sure when the next meeting is. I will continue to bring you guys updates on this as well, right? Maybe I'll go through some other stuff. I'll look through some more stuff. I was just doing meetings minutes this time. Financials are still not out. I've asked my contact close to when theirs are going to be available because we've still got 2024, 2025. Like, let's get the 2025, 2026 financials out, because at the end of the day, you can give me a budget all day, but that doesn't mean that's what you stuck to. So the financials don't lie. That's what actually shows what happened. And the fact that they're taking this long is a little bit frustrating, in my opinion. They should be released by, right? What are you waiting for? Now, maybe I'm out of my depth here. Maybe I don't understand it. Someone leave in the comments if you're listening. Reach out to me if I don't understand this properly. Like, I'm trying to, like I said, guys, I want to hold Lacrosse Canada accountable. I'm a freelance person, right? Independent media, you call me. And I would like to hold them accountable because no one else has been doing it. Shout out Pierre Filion, because you have been doing it, but everyone else has been fucking silent on this. And I don't like that. I don't like that the people that have the voice, this is where people that have voices should be talking about this, and they're not. And I understand it's a sticky situation, but you could do exactly what I did. Just go over what's factual, right? And sometimes I get caught up in it. Sometimes I get a little angry. Sometimes I get frustrated. And that's why I wish somebody more qualified than me was doing this. Because at the end of the day, it's important to keep these guys accountable. I don't care. Again, I don't care who's in there. I don't care. I want the best people in there. And like I said, I'm starting off with a fresh sleeve with these people. I really am. I'm giving them all the opportunity. But I will criticize. I don't care. I will criticize Lacrosse Canada, and I'm going to give my opinion on the situation. My opinion is always subject to change if I get with new information. And if you're not like that, I'm sorry. Then you have too small of a brain, or you're stuck in your ways. If you have new information come in that changes the perspective, you should be open to changing your mind, and that's how I am. So I've changed my mind in this. I've gone back and forth on who was at fault here. Information I got here, and at the end of the day, we're never going to know what really happened in that whole past situation. So I'm going to move forward from here. I don't know who's at fault. Still, after all that being said, I've heard both sides. I've heard more about this situation than probably 99.9% of the people, because I've heard both sides of it, and I still don't know who's. I think both sides aren't fully telling me the truth, to be honest with you. If you want to get into I think there's things that both sides have omitted on purpose, and that's why I'm just going to take this at face value, and I'm going to start doing this from afresh. I'm going to cover all the minutes that get caught. I'm going to be your Lacrosse Canada guys. I'm going to keep these guys accountable. I'm going to try to work with them. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have somebody on from Lacrosse Canada, talk to them respectfully. Everybody I've talked to in or that's connected on both sides, right? Some people, I don't even want to get into that, but everybody I've talked to has been really respectful. So I will do the exact same thing. I'm being respectful, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to hold them accountable, right? And I'm lucky enough to have contacts now that I can reach out and get a little bit more in-depth information on this stuff, right? With all that being said, I'm going to bring you the as up-to-date information as I can, while keeping it completely factual. That's basically all I can promise you guys. And I'm probably going to make mistakes along the way. And so just bear with me. I'm trying to be super transparent here. Like I said, I have no financial education background. I have no journalism background. I am legit. I am college educated, don't get me wrong, but so I know how to read and research and all that stuff. But with that being said, I don't want to pretend I prefer to tell you guys this up front, because then you guys can know where I'm coming from, instead of me trying to pretend like so many other people do, pretend like they have all this knowledge and they don't. I prefer to act like I know less than I do, to be honest with you, is how I live my life. Because I know there's always someone more knowledgeable and smarter in every single category than I am, right? That's just the world, right? And if you don't think that, then you're wrong. If you think you're the smartest person out there, you're not. And if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, is what I've always been told and what I've read and stuff. So I'm trying to be a well-rounded person that's just bringing you guys, whoever's listening and whoever cares about this, the news. So this is where we're at, right? And I'll continue to do that for you guys, okay? So with that being said, there's Lacrosse Canada situation. That was really long. Like, what are we at right now? Yeah, we're over an hour. So that's really long, right? So that's my first topic of the day. I'll probably leave it at that. The other thing I wanted to say, I already congratulated Toronto Rock on winning the championship, right? I am a fan now and all that stuff. I wanted to talk about that as well a little bit, but those are my two topics really. Toronto Rock stuff. We're gonna go into a way deeper dive on episode 50. I've got a big guest coming on, and so I wanted to just kind of get the field stuff out today, and this is a great opportunity to talk about Lacrosse Canada too. So, with all that being said, let's get actually into the episode, right? Because like at the end of the day, like that's Lacrosse Canada stuff. It's great, like it's great to be updated on that. It was a lot. It's a lot. So I thought putting it here actually was a great little way to get it out, right? So we're going to start with the Premier Lacrosse League here. Exciting, right? So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through each of the games here quickly. Okay. And, whoops. And so quickly, I'm just going to run through the scores real quick of these games. Okay. And then I'm going to go through like who's the point leaders and stuff at the end. Salt Lake, May 8th and May 9th was the opening weekend. It was in Salt Lake City, Utah. And you had the California Redwoods beating the Utah Archers 9-5 to start the season. Then you had New York Atlas beating the Carolina Chaos 16-12. On that Saturday, on May 9th, you had Philadelphia Water Dogs beating Maryland Whipsnakes 16-14, very tight game. And then you had the Denver Outlaws losing to the Utah Archers. And so Utah did end up getting a win. They're 1-1 after the first weekend. And couple tight games. I do want to asterisk this a little bit because you had teams that probably didn't have all their players because a lot of those guys were still playing in the NLL, right? So you're going to have more as the weeks go on here in the PLL. You're going to have more and more. Like by week 3, week 4, we should be pretty much full rostered, I would think anyway. Then you got on week 2, May 15th and the 16th, you had the Carolina Chaos beating the Boston Cannons 14-10. You had the Maryland Whipsnakes beating the New York Atlas 12-6. And then on Saturday, you had the California Redwoods losing to the Denver Outlaws 10-9 in a very, very tight game. I watched a bit of this one actually. And then Boston Cannons, you had the Boston Cannons beating the Philadelphia Water Dogs 19-5, an absolute blowout. And again, they had lost the first game of the weekend. Pretty, needed a win, right? And then this weekend coming, you got the Maryland Boston Cannons this coming weekend. It's in Baltimore, and you've got Boston playing Maryland on Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You've got the New York Atlas playing the Denver Outlaws on Saturday at 2, and then you've got also on Saturday at 6:30. You've got Utah playing Maryland. And then you've got Carolina playing Philadelphia at 9 p.m. to close off the weekend. So there we go. We got another four games this weekend. PLL is exciting, guys. It's quick. It moves quick, right? And I do enjoy it. Do watching it. So we got to get stats. We got to go players. Let's go stats actually first. So right now, leading the league, you have QTA McKaysey. You got QTA McKaysey. I'm sorry if I'm going to pronounce these names wrong. We will get the pronunciations down as we go on here. If anybody listen to me, OG, from all my original NLL stuff, my pronunciations were horrible. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Anybody when I'm saying these? So he's leading the lead in points right now, and then you've got tied for second. You have Brian Constable. You have Michael Boehm, Marcus Holman, and Aiden Carroll, all with 8 points. For goals, you've got a tie right now with Brian Constable and Marcus Holman with 6. And Aiden Carroll, all with 6. You've got Connor Kelly leading 3 2-point goals. You've got Brian Constable with 7 scoring points leading. Assists, you got Michael Boehm and Michael Sowers with 4 points. You've got 20 shots for Brandon O'Neill, which is no surprise. He's an animal. He's got a wicked shot. He's arguably got one of the best shots in the league, if not the best shot in the league. You've got Logan Wisnotskis with a shooting percentage of 66.7. You've got Michael Boehm with 99 touches already, which is huge. Second place is Sowers with 86, so that's huge. You've got Connor Farrell going 61.2% in the draw. The next one is TD Ireland with 55% is the next, so he's quite a bit ahead. You got Blaze Riordan with a 66.7 save percentage. Dylan Ward's at a 64.3. I don't think Brett Dobson has played yet. I could be wrong on that one, but I don't think he's quite ready to go yet. You got caused turnovers. You got 8 with Michael Durham, and BJ Farrer has 5 in second. Quite a big difference there. And then ground balls, you got Connor Farrell with 23 ground balls. Justin Inacio, which we recognize him he plays for Calgary in the NLL. He's got 15. So again, balls, Farrell is killing it. I love the PLL site. I always say that when I'm here, but I do really like the site. There we go. There's a start to the thing. I love it too. You can go right in. Like the PLL stats are amazing, man. The PLL is amazing. So right now, currently, you've got Boston Cannons leading the league for offensive stats with 29 total scores. I don't know what this means. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Sorry, current standings right now. Current standings, you got every team is 1-1 right now. There's nobody in the lead, so every team is 1-1, which is wild. It shows again we're into the same thing. You're gonna see the parity in this league, right? You're gonna see very much. I will say Boston Cannons are leading it for goals for. Goals against, California Redwoods have the least goals against. And the scoring differentials, Boston Cannons have a +10, where Philadelphia Water Dogs have a -12. So they got definitely, the Water Dogs have some work to do. The Cannons look strong. But again, like I said, I don't think these teams are fully stacked yet. So we'll see as time goes on. Okay. So there's your quick little PLL update. Okay. So right now we're going to talk about the playoffs here. Okay. So we're going into championship weekend. So to get there, starting off, you had Merritt, which we already talked about. We're going to go through this. We're going to go through the whole playoffs right now. So you have Marist beating Stony Brook to get into the playoffs, or to get into the elimination rounds, 10-6. And then you had Princeton beating Marist 17-8, which isn't really surprising. You had Penn State beating Army 10-6, so pretty tight game. You had Princeton beating Penn State 14-10 to go on to the Final Four. So Princeton's one of the teams in the Final Four. On the other side of things, you had Jacksonville beating Robert Morris 13 to go into the elimination rounds. Then you had Notre Dame beating Jacksonville 18-5. Absolutely killed it. Then you had John Hopkins beating Cornell in a close game, 9-8. The other side of the brackets, you've got Georgia beating Virginia, upsetting them 14-10. And then you had Duke upsetting Richmond 14-12. Duke's a really strong team, though. They're always a really strong team. And then you had Duke beating Georgetown to go to the Final Four with a score of 16-6. On the other side, you had Syracuse beating Yale 18-15. You had Syracuse beating Yale 16-15. Honestly, that I think could have probably been a conference final or a final or whatever. It was such a good game. I did catch a little bit of that one. Then you have North Carolina beating UAlbany 24-6. So absolutely destroyed. But North Carolina's I think they were kind of like one of the favorites to win this whole thing. And then you had Syracuse, though, upsetting them 13-11. And to be honest, I don't know if you can really call it an upset, but Syracuse to me that's the team that I'm jumping on. And I know everyone's going to be like, oh my God, Syracuse, you're so basic. But I love this team, man. Joey Spallina, I'm a big Trey Deer guy. He's obviously not playing this year for obvious reasons, but I think he's such a stud. I hope he comes back healthy whenever he can get back. Big injury there. Then we got, so in the quarterfinals, we have Princeton versus Duke. We have Notre Dame versus Syracuse. I have a funny feeling we're going to see a Syracuse-Duke final. That's my prediction for this. We got championship weekend. I'll be covering it as well this weekend. So stay tuned for that. And I'll bring you guys an episode next week to close out the NCAA, or almost close out the NCAA season. So there you have it. So there you have it, guys. So there's a recap. There's your update for the week. I'll be bringing you episode 50 next. Episode 50 is going to be all the stuff that's going on in box lacrosse. Probably dropping that Thursday or Friday. Got an interview as well, and I'll be talking about my coaching experience this weekend and just the NL championship as well. So with all that being said, thank you for being here. I love you guys. Leave me a comment, go follow the socials, all that kind of stuff. And with all that being said, we will talk to you soon. My name is Jake MacDonald. I'm Anything Lacrosse, and this game never sits still. We will talk to you guys later.